The Final Destination series is peak millennial nostalgia. In fact, many cohorts within my increasingly aging generation, yes, I chose violence today, maintain a wistful fondness for the series of successful horror movies that originally featured 5 installments starting with 2000's Final Destination and seemingly ending with 2011's Final Destination 5. And my generation's adoration of this series is easy to understand considering that these films, judging by the trailers alone, are fun horror experiences about people dying in the most ridiculous, gruesome, over-the-top, and hilarious ways possible. I mean, whoever imagined death by giant log is all sorts of up, and I truly thank them for providing an invaluable service to this country. It's just the type of shit that clicked with my generation's dark sense of humor fostered by the internet back when we thought the internet was a force for good rather than a Nazi radicalization machine. Oops. In other words, millennials loved these films, yet I was not one of them, though not because I hated these movies, but rather due to the fact that I never watched a single one of them.
What did you say?
Yup, I had never seen a Final Destination movie, which might seem weird to many of y'all considering that I love horror movies. Hell, some of you might even be shocked. But here's the thing, I didn't enjoy horror films until I was in my mid-20s, mostly because as a kid and teenager, I was afraid of everything. From a young age, I was paranoid that placing one single small foot gingerly on a sidewalk crack literally would break my mother's back, and I didn't want that shit on my conscience. And then there was the fact that eating Gushers scared the bejesus out of me because I feared ingesting them would transform my head into a fruit like in those commercials. I just didn't want to live the rest of my life as a banana man. And my mental health state only destabilized further when reaching my teenage years, given that my obsessive compulsive disorder was undiagnosed and my body contorted into a masculinized form that disgusted me, meaning there was enough terrifying shit that I had to contend with in real life, and thus horror films didn't serve a purpose for me, because there was no need to add any additional anxieties and existential dreads on top of all the other bullshit I was already mentally combating, meaning that my mind was already a nonsensical war zone, and an often stupid one at that, a hellish combination of D-Day and Walmart on a Black Friday, which is not the best headspace to watch horror movies in, even ones that are fun and feature a man's face getting run through with a massive log.
Phrasing?
However, my approach to the horror genre has changed in recent years. If anything, I do see both the entertainment and intellectual value in them now. Yet still, with that said, I never gave the Final Destination franchise a watch. It's just a series that passed me by. Or at least, that was the case until I saw Final Destination Bloodlines. Directed by Zach Lipovsky and Adam B. Stein, this recent 6th Final Destination film showcased the type of cinematic experience that I missed out on as a child, which is to say, a blood-drenched, absurdist spectacle of death, no relation, and one that was immensely satisfying at that. And that of course starts with the story. The plot follows Caitlin Santajuana's Stephanie Reyes, who has visions revolving around how her grandmother was supposed to die in a horrific accident, yet survived many decades prior, and thus believes that death, like Grim Reaper death, will correct that quote-unquote mistake by eliminating Stephanie's entire family in the most over-elaborate yet gruesome ways possible, hence the movie's Bloodlines title. And from there, Stephanie explores every possible avenue to circumvent their fate. The story, writing, and characters are pretty damn good. In fact, the core cast who are on death's proverbial chopping block all have their own unique personality quirks that allow them to stand out, as well as be fun, sympathetic, yet believable on-screen presences, Stephanie especially, which allows we, the audience, to care about all their respective fates and the mayhem on screen. However, with that being said, we all know that the real appeal to the Final Destination movies isn't the story or the characters. Hell, I knew that even before seeing Final Destination Bloodlines, because these films had a reputation. And to be clear, that isn't a slight on all the actors, writers, and such contributing to this film, because they all did a good job and deserve a lot of praise, you know, because acting is a challenging vocation, and I know just how difficult it is to write good. But it's just the blunt truth. Sure, this film features likable and humorous protagonists, as well as an overall solid message espoused by the late and great Tony Todd's JB, no relation, about enjoying the precious time we have left on Earth while we still can, yet it must be said that this theme doesn't stand up entirely in context with the whole movie as an artistic piece. No, instead, Final Destination Bloodlines works because it champions the series' core franchisal element, the one where death devises the most convoluted and ridiculous ways to to murder people, usually in darkly humorous fashion at that. Because for whatever reason, death isn't just content to kill people via sickness or old age, or just traveling via a Boeing aircraft, but rather, death is a creatively inspired individual crafting murder-infused Rube Goldberg machines, a do-it-yourself dominoes of death, because this man receiving the log ride treatment back in the day isn't just a picture of death, but rather a picture of death who really loves his job. And honestly, I love that for him, as well as for us, the audience, as well. Mostly because the deaths in Final Destination Bloodlines are as impressive as they are hilariously unpredictable. In fact, these sequences often feature a lot of buildup, as otherwise non-life-threatening items such as coins, rakes, and such are meticulously placed in potentially lethal ways. I say potentially because there are always questions of how any given element, tool, or object will interact with any other given element, tool, and object, and so on and so forth. There's just a lot of moving parts here, and these set pieces of death crank up in tension in scenes spanning several minutes, meaning that we in the audience are constantly in suspense as death, that sick carefully puts his master plan into motion, making us wonder how the poor suckers on screen are gonna bite it. Though, spoiler alert, they die in ways that are simultaneously unpleasant as well as funny as shit. Like, to be clear, there were moments I both recoiled in disgust and belly laughed, because Final Destination Bloodlines confirmed that there really are two wolves inside of us, and one of them is a terrible person. Achievement unlocked. I'm going to hell. In conclusion, Final Destination Bloodlines proved that movies can just be fun for the sake of being fun. While this film might not be functional as a holistic artistic piece in terms of thematic storytelling, that shit is fucking irrelevant compared to the validity of venturing to the multiplex to just be entertained by an enjoyable, albeit bloody romp. Which, to be clear, Final Destination Bloodlines absolutely is. If anything, watching this film was a complete blast and easily won me over to where I now desire to go back and experience the rest of the movies in this series, ensuring that Final Destination Bloodlines will not in fact be my final Final Destination movie.